when the gent says, "We perambulate here almost every night," that to me sounds like a pickup line. Hello. Hello. I perambulate here every night, if you catch my drift.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Steam Powered Movies. I am one of your hosts. My name is Mike.
And I am your other host. My name is Dana, steampunk author and various creator of many things.
Yes. Thank you for being here. And thank you for anyone listening.
I live here.
You live here?
I do.
Oh, I live here too. Cool.
That's amazing.
For those of you that don't live here, welcome to Steam Powered Movies. This is a podcast where we watch steampunk movies and then we talk about them. And so this time we watched the 2002 film The Time Machine.
The Time Machine.
Based on the H.G. Wells novel, directed by Simon Wells and starring Guy Pearce.
Simon Wells directed the book The Time Machine?
No, he directed the movie, silly.
Syntax matters. Hashtag.
Sometimes it does. And sometimes we watch a movie about time travel, a thing that I like. I enjoy time travel movies. So we watched The Time Machine because it's kind of steampunk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah, we're going to talk about why it's a steampunk movie. We'll talk about some of our favorite and least favorite things. And then at the end, we're going to give some special ratings. We do our own kind of ratings. That's at the end, so stick around for that. So
also, spoilers.
Yes.
Spoilers for both the film and the book, because I just read the book today. It was like 4 hours on audio. So it's pretty short. Right.
Yeah, so you have now read/listened to the book and seen the movie.
We're gonna use the verbiage read because we're gonna be accessible.
Sure. You read the book and now you watched the movie. I'm very curious to get your thoughts and takes on the differences and
spoiler alert, it's all different.
Really?
Everything.
Wow. Okay. So coming into this, I had seen this movie once before. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember a whole lot. I remembered that he built a time machine and he went to several different times, including really far in the future. My most recent reference is probably the Futurama episode that riffs on this.
I don't remember that episode. I remember seeing this film. I watched it in high school and felt similarly to how I kind of felt about it today.
Yeah.
Kind of, okay, that was a thing.
Right.
Yeah. I don't remember the Futurama episode though. We should go back and watch that.
Yeah, we'll do that. That'll be a bonus episode. Maybe.
Hooray! No promises on bonus episodes.
All bonus episodes are theoretical until proven otherwise. So expectations coming in, overall thoughts.
I mean, like I said, I watched this in high school, so I remembered pieces. Again, spoilers, y'all. So if you don't want the movie to be spoiled, it's about to be. First of all, I remember that like the love of his life died and that he kept trying to go back and like stop it from happening.
Mm-hmm. I actually forgot that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I guess I just didn't think about it. It's been a while since I've seen this movie.
Yeah. But I remembered the Morlocks. I remembered like and this is literally how he's credited in the film, the Uber Morlock.
Ooh, Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons.
Ghost Jeremy Irons.
Pretty much,
put
yeah.
In my notes.
He's kind of a ghost, kind of a telepath, kind of a Morlock. They're a little squiffy on those details, but we'll get to that.
Well, he was bred to have extra mental powers and capabilities.
Yeah, you see his brain basically extended down his spine.
Oh, is that what it was?
That's what that was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, big old brain.
I just thought it was like a big gnarly spine, but that makes sense.
Part of his brain. Like extended brainstem.
Okay. Is that explained more in the book? Is that like expounded upon?
Oh, no. Again, nothing is in the book that's in this film just about.
Really?
Oh my gosh. It's so different.
Wow.
It's almost completely different with like a few exceptions.
Okay. So let's just get this out of the way first. Like what is different in the book, because I guess I'll briefly say the plot of the movie.
Okay.
Right? He has this girl, it's the love of his life. He proposes, she gets killed, and the mugger is like, "Why did you do that?" When he was the one that brought the gun.
Yeah, that was weird. It's like, mate, you're the one who has the gun. Okay, cool.
Some real victim blaming going on
yeah,
there.
really.
So she dies, and then we got 4 years later. He's invented a time machine, and it works already.
Mhm.
And he just travels back, tries to save her once, and she just dies a different way. She gets run over by a horse-drawn carriage.
At least he didn't make her die a bunch of times. Because for some reason in my head, that's what I remember, where like she dies like 3 or 4 times. I'm probably conflating this with something else I've seen
Yeah.
in various ways.
Yeah, he learned the lesson pretty quickly. He's like, "Oh, wait, I guess this isn't going to work."
Yeah.
So
I think I'm conflating this with that, like, what if the Doctor Strange Marvel thing?
Oh,
where,
okay.
like, Rachel McAdams dies in every way possible.
No, this isn't that. But it's implied that it would happen if he kept going back.
Right,
It would keep
exactly.
happening.
Yeah.
And so he decides that he needs to find out why. Like, maybe in the future, people understand time travel better, and they can tell him how he can actually change stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes forward to 2030.
I thought it was 2039.
No, it's 2030 is the first time he goes forward.
Oh, okay.
And he goes to the future library, and the library AI...
Who I love, by the way.
Great. Yeah. Great character. Tells him that he's a moron because he thinks time travel is real. And Guy Pearce is like, "No, really. I kind of know about this." AI doesn't take him seriously. So Guy Pearce is like, "I got to go further in the future." And then he goes to 2037.
Okay, 37.
And then it's the apocalypse because they blew up the moon because they were trying to make apartments there, basically.
Yeah.
And
the lunar leisure living.
yeah, which he saw the ad for in 2030.
Uh-huh.
So the moon is blowed up, and then it's kind of crazy. He gets back in his time machine, but he's kind of jostled around, and he like lands on the controls, and he's knocked out, and he ends up in the year 802701.
Yeah, 800,000 years in the future.
Yep. And he meets these more primitive cliff people and
The Alloy.
the Alloy.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering things.
You're welcome.
And then basically the rest of the movie is there,
Mhm.
and he learns about the two races, the above ground race. This is basically regular humans, and then the underground race, which is Jeremy Irons, specially
The Morlocks.
bred to be hunters and brain control,
Well,
mind
he said
control
they
people.
divided themselves into castes.
Right.
And each caste has a job. So, like, some are the muscle, some are the eyes and ears. And then he's sort of part of the caste that is like the brain. And they have now like telekinetic abilities.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the underground people treat the above ground people, the normal
Morlocks.
humans, as food, basically.
Oh, yeah. They eat them. They straight eat them.
Yeah. You see it, Soylent Green is people in this
Mhm.
movie, for real. Not like in Snowpiercer, where it's kind of a fake out. It's not bugs. It's actually people this time.
Yeah.
And so Guy Pearce is like, well, this sucks. And he somehow makes his time machine explode, time power.
There's like a
everywhere.
temporal wave of energy that like wipes everybody out, or at least all the baddies.
Yeah. Well, there's this little struggle he has with Jeremy Irons, and he makes the time machine go forward while the head Morlock guy is hanging outside of the bubble, and he ages super fast.
It's
And-
very, what is it? Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
The Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Search
yeah,
for
the
the Holy
Last
Grail.
Crusade. Yeah. So basically that's the setup. Then he goes back and grabs the girl that he met there, and then explodes the time machine, and all the time energy makes all the bad guys age super fast into dust. And so now they get to start over without the Morlocks being in the way. And that's the end of the movie. So what's different in the book?
Basically everything, like I said. So there was like no love of his life. Like basically he's having a dinner party in the book, and he's like, hey guys, what if time travel was real? And they're like, that's ridiculous. And he's like, oh, but I built a model. I'm gonna let you see it.
Oh.
And then they play with the model, and they're like, oh, well, it disappeared. maybe that's true, but probably not.
So it's like a miniature version?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
And then like the next time he has a dinner party, he shows up late and looks like he's been dragged through a field. And then he's like, hang on, let me go get changed and stuff, and I'll tell you the story. And basically, like, all of the stuff where he like went to like the near future did not happen in the book.
Okay.
Like, he just went 800,000 years in the future, met the Eloi, hung out for 8 days, made friends with someone there whose name was Weena, not Mara.
Okay.
I guess they thought maybe the name Weena was weird or something.
Yeah.
Or definitely would be made fun of.
Yeah, probably.
Because it definitely sounds like weenie.
Yeah, of course it does.
And then he like learns about the Morlocks and learns that like they eat the Eloi, and basically that like, yes, humanity has split into 2 different species, but in the book it's that like the people, like the working class, were the ones that like went underground and became the Morlocks, and the rich were the ones who became the Eloi. And then the Eloi became food for the Morlocks. Like in the book, they're described as like really weak and small, and like they have like no ambition at all or anything like that. Like they have like not a lot of constitution about them. So they are literally like bred like cattle. And then the Morlocks just like come on up whenever they need a meal, and they just grab one and they have a meal. It's not like this whole thing that was in the movie of like, oh, they're hunted and stuff. Like, no, they just pop on up and take one.
Wow. So
like the Morlocks are kind of the ruling class, and they've taken a very literal sense of eat the rich.
Right. I was just gonna say that like H.G. Wells must have taken eat the rich very very literally.
Well, they actually do mention communism in the book, where he mentions that future societies might be communistic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so at the time the book came out
It was 1895 was the publishing date.
Okay. Was communism like the Red Scare at that time, or was it still seen as like a utopian sort of thing?
No, it was still like theoretical. This was so far off of like what eventually became our kind of modern idea of communism. It was sort of theoretical. I think this was possibly pre-Karl Marx. I don't actually know Karl Marx's dates of when he lived or anything. But also, if you watch, for instance, Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, which takes place just after World War I, communism is a growing idea in that era, as well as like, this is a possibility. And like, hey, how about the working class and stuff? So communism's been around, like the whole idea, for a long time.
Right. So, yeah, I know there was a point in time where communism was like a utopian idea. Like, this is an ideal for the future. We should strive towards this.
Right.
And then at some point it was like, oh no, wait, communism bad. All the attempts to implement it on a nation state scale failed pretty badly.
I mean, there was a lot of corruption. There was a lot of really, really bad agricultural management.
Yeah.
So
then it turned to communism bad. But so this was at a time where it was still like, maybe communism is good.
Right. But anyway, in the book, Weena dies and he just straight leaves.
Oh.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's the book.
So it's really just sort of a thought experiment about...
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of philosophizing. There's not a lot of plot.
Huh. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very short book, right?
It is. Like I said, the audio was 4 hours, which is extremely short for a book.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I never read the book, obviously. So yeah, I was curious how it would compare. Yeah, they definitely put more of a story around it for the movie.
Which is good, because I don't think they could make a movie off the original text.
Right.
Like, literally the only kind of plot devices was that, like, we have to get the time machine back, because the Morlocks do take the time machine.
Okay.
So he has to get it back. That's it.
Whereas in this one, they just give it back to him.
Yeah, it's like, okay, get out of here now. Goodbye.
Jeremy Irons is like, here's your answer, which was kind of obvious the whole time. Like, why can't you change anything? And it's because it's a paradox.
Yeah.
He would never have invented the time machine if she hadn't died.
Exactly.
So he could go back and save her.
Yeah.
So when he goes back...
I will say, this is why I don't like time travel films. Because like paradoxes are kind of like that, like neener, this is why you can't do the thing.
What, you don't like pedantry? I
No,
thought you were
no,
a
I
fan
don't.
of pedantry.
I do love pedantry. Don't get me wrong, but it's such a and I feel like they do that kind of a lot in time travel based media where they're like, oh, we can't go back and do the thing because of paradox. They did in Doctor Who with Amy and Rory. Go back and save Amy.
Okay, that's a bad example. But I mean, time travel stories are a lot about whatever the rules of that time travel are. There's lots of different forms of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like this version of time travel, and that you can't change things that are at least dependent on like the time travel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this movie, it didn't really address any other, like if certain things you could change, other things you can't change.
But it's kind of like that whole ripple effect thing of like, if XYZ hadn't happened, then so-and-so would have never met this person, who in turn never would have like introduced this person to this person. And therefore this important thing never would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that gets really messy really fast.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And so many time travel movies are full of loose ends and threads that don't get tied up neatly because it's a messy thing.
Yeah.
But I do like that this one had sort of a limited scope of him trying to change stuff, but it showed a consistency in that he couldn't create a paradox.
Right.
I like that sort of consistency in my time travel rules.
Mm-hmm.
Fan of that.
Okay, cool. I'm not generally a huge fan of time travel stuff anyway. Like, I give Doctor Who a pass because Doctor Who has very firmly established itself as like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Right.
We kind of just play by our own rules.
Yeah, that's the sort of nothing really matters time travel. We do whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like movies are usually much more rule based and self contained. And this one followed that. Although, like I said, I wrote in my notes, as soon as the first time he went to go back and save her, and she ended up dying again, I wrote in my notes, I was like, oh, he can't create a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
That's why time won't let him do it. But it takes him the rest of the movie to figure that out for himself.
Right.
Which I guess, fair enough. I've seen more time travel movies than he had, so.
Yeah. I have to say, this film, like, I kind of bounce off of it, to be honest. One, because, again, I don't always love time travel things, but also, like, it just doesn't really do anything for me. It feels like it's ticking a lot of sci-fi boxes without, doing much more than that. Although I will say the time-lapse scenes were very, very cool.
Yeah.
So they're like, there's that time-lapse scene with like the changing fashions across the street, and specifically like the ladies' dresses and the hemlines keep getting higher and higher. I thought that was a very cool convention. I liked it a lot. I liked seeing the near future world where like everyone's on bikes and we are living on the moon and things like that. I enjoy that sort of thing. But yeah, like as far as like him living with the Alloy, it's fairly boilerplate to me. It's like, oh, he gets rescued, they take care of him. Of course, he like falls for the basically only female character.
The one that gives him attention and that speaks his language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. And then he just decides to, I mean, he didn't really decide to stay behind. He destroyed the time machine in order to save the Alloy. But like, okay, cool. That's great. Cool. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. But at least it sort of closes the loop on, he invented the time machine because he felt that like his life had been interrupted. He didn't get the happiness that he thought he deserved. So he was working so hard to get that back, and it failed, and that he didn't get back.
I will pick you up on this. I don't think he's doing it for him. I think he's doing it for her, because he had that whole long speech about like whose fault it was. And yes, I do think he was trying to assuage his own guilt. But I do genuinely think that he was doing it for Emma, because it was her life that was cut short. And I do think he was doing it, so that she could get to live her life.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can give him a little more credit for sure. But at the very least, it was, he realized that he couldn't undo the past. But he did come to a place where he was like, okay, I'm in a place where I can accept that now, and I am happy here, and I have people around me that I can find joy with. And so he's like, okay, I don't need this time machine.
Right.
Which kind of works.
You know, we haven't talked about actually though.
What's that?
We haven't talked about what makes this film steampunk.
Sure. Yeah. We kind of got into the whole like
The meat of it.
the book compared to the movie thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. Why is this on our list? Why is this a steampunk film? I have some things written down as far as what are in it.
Yeah.
It's obviously set in the time period, actually very similar to a couple of movies ago. Jingle Jangle was sort of in like a Dickensian, I guess you would say, time frame.
Right.
The men in the bowler hats and the jackets and whatnot. There's also an omnibus.
Oh yeah.
We saw that in the beginning.
Nice callback. You remembered.
I did, yeah.
Very well done.
There was lots of pocket watches. He had
a vast collection of pocket watches for I'm checking my notes here, a first-year associate professor.
Oh, okay.
That tells me that like he must come from money and he doesn't necessarily need this job. Like he's not like a struggling first-year teacher.
He's at a very prestigious school, though. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's like one of the Ivy Leagues or something, though. So maybe they just were very well paid then.
It was Cornell.
Cornell? Okay, yeah. So maybe he just made a lot of money because he's at an Ivy League school.
No, he had like 7 or 8 pocket watches.
And a big place that he lived at. I don't know.
Yeah, they sort of hand wave past. He has money somehow. He just has a lot of money.
Yeah. There was a steam-powered car.
There was, and I want to mention something about that.
Sure, go for it.
So when the gent says, "We perambulate here almost every night," that to me sounds like a pickup line.
Right.
Hello, I perambulate here every night, if you catch my drift.
Maybe, I don't know. I just wrote down that was a fun word and then made sure to say it several times.
Well, that's where we get the word pram, like a baby buggy.
Yeah.
It's from perambulate.
The more you know.
Fun fact.
Fun word.
Yes.
Perambulate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the time machine itself seemed to be run on steam somehow.
Yeah, it has some like good like hiss of steam sound effects and things like that.
Obviously, lots of gears.
Yeah.
And then even in the future, what did they call again? The underground orc people?
The Morlocks.
The Morlocks, yeah. They had their whole factory that he walked through.
Apparently coal power is still a thing.
Yeah.
800,000 years in the future.
Yeah, they show one of them like shoveling coal into a fire.
I mean, and they had like the big like turning thing that kind of ran through the tunnels and stuff. Okay, cool, sure. Like that's all right. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. So they at least sort of kept the steam technology throughout.
Yeah.
Kind of thematically, steampunk even in the far future.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in the near future, but
no, not at all.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I like that everyone was on bikes in the near future though. That was quite cool.
Yeah.
We've gotten rid of cars and we've just gone, yeah, we're just gonna bike. We're just gonna bike everywhere. I assume there is like a very, very fast mass transit somewhere that we just didn't see. I thought it was fun that everyone was on bikes.
Kind of funny though that, he cuts forward to 2030 and it's basically kind of
Amsterdam?
Yeah, I guess, but I say maybe semi-utopian. You've got like these AI computers who have all of human knowledge that anyone can access for free. You've got bikes everywhere. Like we're colonizing the moon. Everything's great. And then just 7 years later, it all falls apart.
I want to say though, because this is a very interesting thing about the AI, besides the fact that future AIs have sass. His name is Vox, by the way. And Vox is performing some A+ trolling. I love him. He might be my favorite character in the whole film.
It's pretty great. Yeah. Pretty great.
But this is the thing about knowledge is that like how the knowledge is presented is very powerful. And I would not be surprised if the knowledge is presented in a way to like hand wave past like all of the various capitalist disasters from the past as they're getting ready to excavate the innards of the moon.
Right.
So I wonder how that AI has been loaded up with information.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it just like the one side of things, whoever programmed him or whoever is funding the programming?
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, the movie doesn't really get into those details. We don't get to live in that time frame very long.
But I have questions.
Right. But yeah, to me it's funny that sort of everything being great didn't last very long.
Right.
It didn't take long for
The
humanity.
future is now. Oh no, we blew up the moon.
Right. And it's also funny to me that it was to like build a colony on the moon. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna set off these explosives. It's gonna be great. And like, whoops, we broke the whole thing.
I will say that is not the only narrative I've ever seen like that.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of, I think that lava tunnels actually might already exist on the moon, and we're like aware of it because in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, that was a very strong thing as well, where there's a lot of people living on the moon in tunnels and things like that.
Are you sure that's real and not just part of the book story?
Well,
No, not sure. Sure? Not sure.
not sure. I don't.
Okay.
I don't actually know.
Well,
Yeah.
Do your own research. We haven't done any.
Right. Well, watch Sailor Moon because I think that's the thing on there. Definitely legit.
Yeah, Sailor Moon, the historical documents. Yes, very much. So also the moon blowing up thing. I think there was sort of a theme of anti-capitalist a bit throughout this whole film. I think that early on, his friend is looking at all of his drawings and future invention type things, and he's like, "Oh, do you think we'll ever take it too far?" And Guy Pearce's character is like, No such thing. And then later when he sees the moon exploded and like civilization has had to reset, he was like, yeah, maybe we took it too far.
That is very much like the classic sci-fi trope of just like, we push science fiction or we push science until we break everything.
Yeah.
And then we live in a post-apocalyptic world.
Yep. That's how it goes.
Which
That's
I will
just
say,
the cycle.
The cliffside city in this post-apocalyptic world, 800,000 years in the future, is extremely cool. I love a good system. I love some clever world building.
Yeah.
And I did really like that. We only saw it for like maybe 5 minutes, if that. But it was a very cool, like, little slice of this is how humans could live.
Yeah. And I do like that the pulling up the boats at night. And she was like, yeah, we don't really need to talk about why. It's just safer. You could tell that, like, them living on side of cliffs is kind of odd, too. They're like, there's some sort of danger here you're avoiding. Right. You're not telling me about.
Yeah.
And that sort of pays off kind of well, a little bit later on. But I like that they keep it a little bit mysterious for a while.
I actually didn't really like that.
Really?
No, well, just because like it felt a little trite as to like we're gonna create mystery, but we're gonna do it just by like being like, oh no, we can't. And I think they kind of give the idea that it's like a cultural thing that like we don't talk about the past or something, or like we don't talk about those who have left us, e.g., have been taken by the Morlocks to be eaten.
Exactly, right.
And that cultural things like that don't come from nowhere. There's usually some kind of thought process behind it. And in this, there was nothing given like that. It's just like, we just don't do it because that's what the plot needs.
Yeah, although I think you could kind of rationalize it as that's their way of dealing with it, is just not dealing with it.
That,
I don't know.
I don't think a civilization can survive like that. I mean, and I say that as we live in a hugely climate change or climate crisis kind of world, and we're just not dealing with it. So,
yeah. And
it's not going to get better on its own. So, yeah, like, I don't see that as like a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I did think it was a little bit odd that he was asking questions and she was just like, I'm not going to tell you, because obviously everyone else knows these things. They know that the Morlocks exist and what the danger is, but she's not telling him what the danger is. I don't know if that was because she didn't trust him yet. Maybe she expected that he was going to go back to where he came from, and so he just didn't need to know.
I mean, she did try to get rid of him. When they were
true.
checking on the time machine, she's like, you should go, but you should take my brother and keep him safe.
Right.
But
which she finally let the cat out of the bag that, oh yeah, there's something dangerous here that I haven't told you about. But,
even like that though, like that scene is more of, or what I just find kind of like lazy writing, because suddenly they hear the horns and stuff and she's like, oh, they're early. Like, are they on a schedule? That's weird. Because in the book, it was that they could not stand light. Like, they're nocturnal. Like, or not nocturnal, but they live in caves. They're not used to the light. And they only come out in the dark because they have evolved to have these, like, huge eyes and they can't stand the light and all this kind of stuff.
Pale skin.
Yeah, exactly. They're actually white in the books, like not albino, like the cave fish that are completely white and stuff. Same kind of thing.
And even Jeremy Irons says that when he's explaining the whole setup, it's like, yeah, we went underground, and so we evolved underground, and then we tried to come back up, and we couldn't.
Right.
So,
but they're early for the hunt. It's still daylight out,
and they're fine.
Yeah,
you're right. That doesn't make sense.
I don't love that. Like, I felt like that whole thing was not like just like whatever.
Yeah, you're right. That's actually probably the biggest hole in the movie to me that I've caught so far. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Maybe they planned on having a scene where it's at night, but it didn't work out somehow. It would have made more sense to have that scene at dusk or something.
Right, when like I don't know, it's begun to fall or something like that. Because I will say, like, yes,
or maybe it's a cloudy day and they come out. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like that scene was just, we need the scene to happen, so it's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. We're kind of getting into like some of our favorite and not favorite things.
Sure.
Kind of all over the place. Who needs to follow a format?
Right.
I think the visuals were not super great and planned out. Some sections were really good. Like the time lapse stuff was really cool. Obviously, I think they spent a lot of their energy on that and on like the set design for the different time periods. When we're living in like the cliff houses or we're in the underground place. Just some of the like the transitionary stuff. Any of the action scenes were kind of clumsy, I thought. A lot of shaky cam.
Yeah.
Just like running shaky cam. Like, this is action now. We're shaking the camera.
I do feel like they presented Jeremy Irons as like very overpowered from the get-go. Like, he like telekinetically drags Guy Pearce across the floor to grab his throat. But like, he never really does that again. Like, when they're having their fight scene, he's just punching him. He's not using any of his telekinetic powers. So,
yeah, they're just punching.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm kind of like meh about this film. Like, it's fine. It's a film. Like, I don't regret watching it. It was fine.
Sure.
I just like meh.
Yeah, I think it kind of hits me the same as it did before. And that's why I didn't remember a lot from it. That, it was kind of interesting case study in what will civilizations look like years into the future.
Yeah.
And maybe exploring that a little bit. And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's the movie.
Right.
And yeah, they put a little bit of feeling into it with the, his fiance getting shot and being the impetus to build the time machine and the whole paradox thing. I think that makes for enough of the bones of a sci-fi story that, it's fine.
Yeah. It does the job.
Agreed.
It's a fairly solid movie.
Yeah.
Future civilizations eat the rich.
Yeah, there were a few little jokes that I liked.
Oh?
That were thrown in. So here's my little joke corner. He says something near the very beginning about how he had created a electric toothbrush.
Yes.
Like well before its time.
That was cute.
And he says about it will help people keep their teeth well into their 40s.
Right.
Which is great.
I don't know when toothbrushing began to be a regular thing, but I could see that being like, hey, you guys, you see how we keep losing our teeth early in life? Maybe we should fix that.
Yeah. And then in 2030, when he walks into the library, basically, there is like a teacher escorting some kids on a field trip, and one of them's misbehaving, and the teacher says, I will resequence your DNA. So help me. Right.
I caught that as well. That was very good.
Great. That's a great like future kid threat.
Yeah.
And then, in the future, she calls him a wandering idiot. That was a good little, like, he doesn't speak their language. They don't understand him.
Well, also, like, she was like, where do you come from? Don't lie to me and tell me fast. So he's like, well, I came from the past and I'm a time traveler. And she's like, so you guys.
Right.
Because of course, like, if she were to relay that, it would not go down well.
Yeah, and I like how just straightforward she was too, where he was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, they're deciding whether or not to throw you in the river."
Cool. Yeah. I'm down.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. This is serious. Got it."
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't like a big thing. It was like, "Oh yeah, they're deciding if you should live or not." Oh, okay, cool.
I really like scenes like that and like that kind of dialogue where like we're not laboring through it. Like, yeah, no, this is just happening. Like, and that feels fairly like, yeah, like that would be an option on the table. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah, no, like some other movies would draw that out where it's like he doesn't understand what they're talking about, and it's all he's in the dark, and it's this long drawn out thing. But it's like, no, it's like a minute.
Yeah,
and then
I
it's
appreciate
done.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
We got over the whole language thing because in the book too, he spends a long time not understanding their language and then suddenly understanding their language.
Really?
Yeah, because he's like, oh, it was very simplistic. I mean, it's that very typical like Victorian attitude of like, oh, we're so sophisticated and we're so like, look at these like sad people and kind of thing.
Yeah, I think their workaround kind of works. That it's like, oh, well, we've sort of preserved English as a thing that we teach kids, but we don't really use it.
Right.
It's sort of an antiquated, maybe like Latin is for us today.
Yeah. No, I mean, kids still learn Latin in school, even though like no one actually speaks it.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
can dig it.
I'm not sure I buy that it would be preserved in its present form for 800,000 years.
It's a very long time.
Although they did have another thing that I actually liked too about the set design was that little valley with all the stone tablets of things from around New York, basically.
That was very cool.
Yeah, I think that was a really cool visual thing, but also did help explain how they preserved the language.
Right.
That they had it written in stone tablets. That these are English words and sentences and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that part of it. Any other stuff that you liked or didn't like? Want to comment on?
To be honest, that's kind of it. I kind of talked about it already as to like the stuff that I liked. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a fairly simple film.
And it was short too. It felt very short.
Yeah, I didn't clock the running time on it, but yeah, and also from my memory the first time, I thought I remembered there being more time periods, or at least more time spent in each time period. But this seems to actually follow the book that it's mostly set in the 800,000 years in the future.
Right.
Like that's most of the story is in that time period, and him, learning to cope with he can't change the past, or in the book's case, just observing future society and being like, that was cool. I'm going to go back to my dinner party.
Right.
Which is kind of wild.
I know. Oh man. Like it is just, this is the thing that I find very funny about some of this really old literature is, my goodness, do they just hand wave past some stuff? Because I can't remember if I talked about it on this podcast or not, because I hadn't read the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by the time we did the podcast about it.
Right.
But in the end of that book, the main character, whose name I can't remember, they are in a boat in a whirlpool. Him, Ned Land, and his assistant, like they escape on a boat, get into a whirlpool. He gets knocked out while they're in the whirlpool, and then he wakes up and they're all fine. He's like, oh, I couldn't say how we escaped. Merp, merp. And that's
it. What a great way to hand wave your way out of writing yourself into a corner. That's incredible. You should use that.
I'm not going to do that. I have way too much self-respect for that.
That's kind of amazing.
And I don't know if it's like that was just a convention of the age, because Jane Austen, who came before H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, didn't do that. Mary Shelley didn't do that. So I don't know if it's just these two writers.
Yeah.
Or just what.
Oh, I also like how they threw in a little bit of meta that
there was a lot of meta.
Yeah, when he was asking the AI about time travel, and he was like, oh, here's Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. And he even said H.G. Wells' The Time Machine.
Right.
Which is maybe a bit much, but
that's all right. I like that. They were having fun with it. They're like, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, we're self-aware here.
Yeah.
This is not super sophisticated. We're having fun.
Yeah. Well, we should give this some ratings if you don't have anything else.
Yeah. No. It's that part of the show where we give it the ratings. So first, we will rate it on how steampunk this film is. So on a scale of 1 to 5 steam engines, how steampunk is this movie, Dana?
I think I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 because while it is very steampunky, we do also spend a good bit of time in a very non-steampunk world. So 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is, sprinkled throughout. It's here and there, like we said. There's several examples, but yeah, it's not an overwhelming theme. Yeah, I think 4 out of 5.
It's more just the setting.
Yeah, the setting, and there are steam-powered things here and there.
Yeah.
And the time machine itself is steam-powered.
Presumably.
Somehow. Yeah, presumably.
Yeah.
We never see him like refilling a water tank or anything, but whatever, it's fine.
I mean, there were some pretty glowy lights, which suggests some other kind of power source, but that's okay. Yeah.
Who knows? Something magic, hand waving, he made it work.
Pretty much, yeah. Which, of course, that's not really the important part.
Yeah, no, it's really not. Yeah. So then also, we'll rate this movie not according to any sort of critic standards because we're not movie critics.
Yeah.
We are just people who watch movies. And so we're going to rate it based on how much we enjoyed it. So Dana, on a scale of 1 to 5 gears, how much did you enjoy this film?
Like I said, I kind of bounced off of it, both the first time I saw it in high school and now. I'm going to give it like 3 out of 5. Like it's a solid sci-fi film. It's fine.
That's pretty.
It didn't like, it didn't do me wrong too much really. So it's fine.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna land right about the same place. So I'm gonna give it. My scale is on top hats, 1 to 5. So 3 top hats for me. Yeah,
excellent.
I didn't not like it. It was enjoyable enough, and it was short. So we were in and out, and we had a fun little jaunt through time, 800,000 years in the future.
What's that? Who are the 2 guys from the Muppets? Stadler and
Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah, Stadler and Waldorf. It was short. I loved it.
or like our main character in the beginning of the movie when the Emma gets a hat. And she's like, "Isn't it silly?" And he was like, "It's very silly. I love it."
Oh, that's fine.
I thought that was a good line.
It's fine.
Well,
it didn't really do much for me.
Well, on that ringing endorsement, I think it's about all we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, friends.
Yes, thanks for hanging out with us. If you're listening to this and you liked it, please leave us a review on whatever platform you listen. Please give us a 5-star review and some glowing remarks, if you please. We would appreciate it.
Or not glowing remarks. If you hate it, that's okay too. It's just having the reviews.
No, but give us glowing remarks, please, in the review. And if you have any comments, though, negative or positive, whatever, you can tweet them at us at SteamPoweredPod on Twitter. Also, if you have any movie suggestions, any steampunk films that we have not covered yet that you think we should, please tweet it at us at SteamPoweredPod and let us know. If we cover a movie that you suggest, we'll give you a shout out on that episode. So please do that. Any other information you want about us, you can go to steampoweredmovies.com, and please join us again next time for the next episode. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Bye.
Goodbye.